Guys, welcome back to the channel. It's a sunny day after a snow here, so it's super bright. I'm about to install new speaker wires on my truck because I just did a big install and I have these really expensive competition speakers I put in. They were refurbished NT Orions from back in the 90s. I think they retailed for like $3,000 a pair. And while the upper end of the frequencies are going pretty well, the lows are just not quite as crisp as I'd like. And I did a little research and it appears to be related to the amplifier damping rate. And this is all new to me. It's nothing I really paid much attention to. In all previous installs, I always ran fresh speaker wire and I wasn't doing anything super high end. And it sounded fine for what I was expecting. But in this case, I want a little bit better. And I am a little bit OCD, so that also plays into fact. And as a carpenter, I measure twice and cut once, but in audio, I don't even know what to measure. So I'm learning this as I go. And it turns out I was running what's called a 9-con from my amp to the deck to use the original speaker wires, which would be fine if I had an amp that was putting out a decent amount of damping. I'm not. My installer who sold me the equipment suggested to do that. And he's used to running JL audio equipment the whole way through. JL amps run about 1,000 damping factor, which is very high. And doing the math with the 18 gauge factory wires and the 9-con would have put me at a damping factor of 60, which is fine. It's actually above the minimum of 50 for hi-fi audio. In my case, the amp I'm running, while I love the amp, I love it because it's an AV power and it's Orion, it matches the speakers. It's only running a damping factor of 100. So that's 10 times less, and that puts me at 6 at the doors, which according to audio experts is lower than nominal for background listening. So I'm gonna show you guys right now. We have the original 9-con in there and those are pretty thin. And I'm not gonna go too crazy here. I'm not doing oxygen-free copper. I am doing 100% copper. It's probably 99.6% or something like that copper, which will, but based on the calculations, should put me at about 70 at the door. With the way I'm going to run it, I'm running 14 gauge and I'm going to run 2 strands of it to each positive and each negative terminal. That'll be about a little bit higher than the equivalent of a 10 gauge, which should be able to take care of the situation. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results, so stick around and we'll see how it goes. Trying to get the speaker through here. I've got this harness that I pulled apart, but this bendable conduit is really tough. So I'm going to take this fish stick with a round tip on it. I'm going to spray it with silicone lubricant because that won't damage the rubber. I'm also going to put some in the tube and hopefully be able to push this through into the speaker to be able to draw those cables from. And that'll be the same deal on all 4 really easily. I tried that before without the silicone and it was darn near impossible. So we're tied into the tip of that stick. I'm going to pull that through and then I should be able to double it up as well and get that size we're looking for. Okay, got it through, no problem. And I'm just gonna go ahead and clip this off. We'll have a fresh wire to work with. First one routed, and you can see the difference between the 18 gauge and the 14 gauge. And I'm actually not gonna double them up because the crossovers only take up to a 12 gauge, so I can't fit 2 of those. I could splice them together and then run 1 lead out of that splice, but I think the difference is gonna be significant enough that I'm not gonna care if it's a little bit better, because I'm going basically about 6 feet to that door speaker versus before this 9-con went all the way up to the front through the back of the head unit there and then all the way back to the rears. And it's really mainly affecting the low frequencies anyway, and that's where these rear door speakers are. And these rear door speakers are going to have the most improvement because they're the shortest run. So I think 6 feet at 14 gauge still puts me at 47 on that scale versus 50 is minimum for hi-fi. I don't think 3 is going to make a discernible difference. Well, that's one way to spend an entire day. I'm glad I did it. I just listened to a little bit of music, and the first thing that stood out to me is the tweeters were brighter, which I didn't expect because that impact is supposed to be mainly on the lows. And the lows sounded more crisp, that's for sure, but I already have a JL audio amp going to my sub, so that was already crisp, but it's like the mids and the highs just seem brighter and more clear. And I guess that makes sense because it's not as dumbed down, it's not as dulled. It's like there's less sloppiness in each note. So yeah, I'd say it's worth it unless your amp already has high damping like the JL audios. They can run a full entire circuit on those old 18 gauge wires and I think they'd be fine. But for most amps, you're gonna need to upgrade that speaker wire. And it is worth it. It only costs $35 for that wire, and I could definitely tell, even especially at low volumes. Like at low volumes, it's more detailed, it's more clear. I don't feel like I need to turn it up to get that full auditory experience. So Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and I do a lot of DIY stuff in carpentry, and I'm into the outdoors, so stick around and subscribe if you like that kind of thing, and please share with your friends and throw that video a like button. Appreciate it. Have a good day.